Guys, can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, you're clear.
Can't hear you, Arama. One second.
You can't hear me, Kya?
Hello?
Atharva, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah,
Am
I
I
can hear you now.
audible now?
Yeah.
Okay. This background blurring option is not there in iPad, Kya?
It must be
I
there.
can't find it. It's not there.
So
I'm
click
so
on the
small.
three dots.
Yeah, action. Yes.
See, I'm sharing this message. Should I forward this? Is this okay? Just check the group.
Okay.
देखो एक बार.
It's perfect. Yeah.
खुल रहा है क्या एक बार? खोल के देखो फोन से. You there?
Yeah, yeah, it's opening.
ठीक है.
चल रहा है वो.
Do, will you be needing permission to enter? कि you can enter without permission also.
I think you need permission. Admit करना होता है ना अंदर. Did you admit me inside?
Oh yeah, I did. Is there no option where I can like remove that?
I seriously don't know about Google Meet that much. Is it showing in your because you made the link ना उसमें कोई दिखा रहा है क्या ऑप्शन में से एडमिट का?
अभी तो you haven't admit. हाँ मुझे admit करना ही पड़ेगा सबको.
हाँ सबको एडमिट
ठीक
करना
है बराबर.
पड़ेगा.
ठीक है. I'll do that. So I'm forwarding this then. ठीक है.
या फॉरवर्ड.
Send this to your friend also, Haripriya.
या आई सेंट इट टू हर पहले.
Okay,
Then you
ठीक
sent me
है.
ना that time.
How do I rename myself?
वहाँ पे ऑप्शन है ना. चेंज. वो तो एंटर करने से पहले ऑप्शन रहता है. मतलब बिफोर स्टार्टिंग द मीटिंग.
Oh, like now I can't do that.
Just see. I don't think you can do it now. Yeah, that option isn't showing now. वो स्टार्टिंग में रहता है चेंज करने का नेम.
ठीक है. मैं लीव करके ज्वाइन कर रही हूँ.
ठीक है. बट इफ यू क्लोज इट देन मीटिंग बंद नहीं होगा ना. ठीक है. Were you able to?
No, I couldn't. I want to make it IMA MSN, but वो हो नहीं रहा है.
दिख रहा है, मतलब मेरे का नॉर्मल गूगल से, यूट्यूब से।
Okay. Is my screen flickering a lot?
Yeah, your screen is not flickering, and Atharva there, it's live streaming.
My screen is not flickering?
No, no, it's not
Okay,
flickering.
ठीक है.
My background isn't
Live.
glowing blur, ऐसे चलेगा ना फिर?
हाँ हाँ चलेगा.
लाइव स्ट्रीम हो रहा है
ठीक.
साथ में. She said 6:45.
ठीक है. Will she want to share the screen or something?
No. Anja, she said no, she won't want to share the screen or something anytime.
ठीक है ठीक है. That works, Atharva. That's okay. Hi Haripriya, how are you?
Hi, hello. I'm doing well. How are you?
Wonderful. Ready for today?
Yeah, yeah. Also, could you like tell me if like the whole thing's okay, like the setting and everything?
Yeah, yeah. It works perfect.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I'll like be on standby and you guys can like let me know on the next slide.
Sorry?
I was like, I'll
Okay.
be on standby and you guys can like let me know.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I haven't been admitting people since I was waiting for you to come in. Now I'll start admitting participants, and as soon as we have like a decent number, we can start.
All right, great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hi everybody. We'll be starting the meeting at 7 o'clock. We're waiting for more participants to join in. Our speaker is ready and we'll start soon. Thank you. Hi everyone. We'll begin in 5 minutes. We're waiting for it to be seven and for new speakers and for new participants to join in, and then we'll start immediately. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I welcome each and every one of you to USMLE and Us. This event is brought to you by IMA MSN IMA, or the Indian Medical Association, MSN, Medical Student Network, which is a national body for medical students across India. And we bring together students from across medical colleges in the country to come together and to have a huge network for them to share resources and ideas for their growth outside the academic and curricular front, for them to grow as medical students and as future doctors. So in today's session, we will be talking about the USMLE, or the United States Medical Licensing Examination, which is taken by students who want to pursue the residency in the states. For that, we have with us Haripriya Vemuri. I would like to welcome her and would like to thank her for sparing her time and enlightening everybody about the process. And we will wait for another 2 minutes for a couple more people to join in, and then we'll start the event. I would like my colleague from IMA, Arhama, to introduce our speaker.
So, hello everyone and welcome to the session. Antara, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Welcome to the session. I'm Arhama from the ACAT subcommittee, and thank you, Antara. That was a wonderful covering of what IMA stands for and also what our session is going to be about today. Again, I'd like to thank Haripriya for joining us today. As we know, Haripriya recently cleared her Step 1 examination. She is a final year medical student from Andhra Medical College, and having given recently her Step 1 examination, she has lots of knowledge which she even likes to teach, and she also runs a very good famous page on Insta called Med School and Life. I'm sure many of you will want to look it up and follow her later. But Haripriya, she not only has good experience about USMLE, but she also likes to teach students about it. So thank you, Haripriya, for joining us today, and let us begin with the session then.
Hello, everybody. I'm Haripriya, and firstly, I'd like to thank Arhama for that really humble introduction. And yeah, you really hyped up my page a lot, so thanks for that. I'm really looking forward to this session, and I'm really looking forward to answering everybody's questions about USMLE. But yeah, please keep in mind that I've only taken Step 1, so I can only give you my perspective on everything that follows as well. But yeah, sure, let's start.
Wonderful. So Haripriya, why don't you give us like a basic introduction about yourself and your journey so far as a medical student, and with respect to your USMLE process as well, and then we can move ahead with the same.
Okay, so briefly, I'm in my final year of medical school, so that means I finished 4 years, and honestly, I knew that I wanted to do USMLE like since first year. I just wasn't sure as to, when I should start, because a lot of seniors in my college, they only started after they graduate, right? But that's the thing. So I did not want to wait for like a lot of time after I graduated. Like I didn't want to be 26, 27 by the time I started my residency. So I decided that, this was a really good time to, go ahead with my Step 1, like clear everything. So that's the thing about USMLE, it's a bunch of steps. It's a number of things on your checklist that you have to clear. So Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, a lot of clerkships. So I wanted to start, finishing all of them like one after another, so that, I'd be ready by 2024. I mean, that's pretty much it.
With the questions then?
Sorry?
Do you want to start with the questions then, Haripriya?
Yeah.
Do you want to start with the questions then?
Yeah.
All right. So I think the first question that people have is why USMLE? Like why should we choose it over PLAB? And next, if you could give a brief outlook on that aspect.
Okay. So first of all, I actually attended one of these introductory sessions by DAMS and Kaplan when I was in my second year, and that's when I heard about the statistics in India, right? So if you're writing NEET-PG or if you're appearing for next, like the number of PG seats in India is like close to 10,000 or 12,000. And there is a ginormous, dissonance between the number of people appearing for the exam and the number of seats actually available. And if you belong to open category, like then it's just, the possibility of you getting in is very low, and the possibility of you getting into a branch that you want at a place that you want itself is going to be very hard, right? So, and NEET PG or next, for that matter, I feel like they don't really judge you as a person, like as a whole. And the thing about PLAB and USMLE is that they actually view you as a person as a whole, right? It's not just your rank or it's not just your marks that you have, but it's your entire resume and what all you've done, like how have you contributed to the society. So a lot of these factors come into play. And between PLAB and USMLE, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do PLAB because I'm not sure if like UK is my thing because I'll be able to answer this better. Like if you ask me about PLAB versus USMLE, but the thing about PLAB is that it again takes like a lot of time. Like you have to get GMC registered, and you can only take your PLAB exams after your final year. But USMLE, like you can start taking them in your third year, right? So for PLAB, you have to like finish your PLAB exams, and then you have to go to the UK, and you'll have to do like 1 year internship kind of a thing there because you need to get GMC certified or registered. And then after that, again, you'll have to start looking for jobs in the NHS. It just, it didn't feel as streamlined as USMLE, and I feel like US has like better opportunities for international students. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah, you covered most of the questions, and I'm sure you eased a lot of doubts and cleared our minds on it. So the next question that people have is, how do you start the preparation? Like, even if you want to, how do you start? Like, let's say if you're a first year student or if you're in a final year and you want to start an internship, is there any difference between that? How do you go about it?
Okay, so the thing about step one is that I'm sure most of you know, step one syllabus is basically everything in your first year and your second year. And it also includes a little bit of stuff from community medicine, like our PSM, right? So there's biostats and psychiatry as well, which is not usually taught in India. So psychiatry is not that hard, if you can if you sit in and you study, it's going to be easy for you. So normally I would recommend that you take it like between your third year or, after your third year, because then you'll have like a little bit of understanding of biostats. So the first thing you need to decide when you want to appear for USMLE is you should understand your timeline. So when do you want to apply? Like which math cycle do you want to apply for? Correct. So I want to apply for March 2024 because I graduate in 2024 and I want to apply for the cycle of 2024. And this is not like a 1 month thing or a 2 month thing. The whole cycle of March is it's going to go into the next year. So you apply in September and your residency starts in, June of next year. So it starts in June of next year, right? So you have to keep that in mind, and you have to think about it, because if you just sit and waste a lot of years, it's going to be really long before you get picked for a residency program. Correct? So, and one more thing is your chances of getting picked will become lower as, your year of graduation increases. So usually it's recommended that you start applying for match 3 years, like under 3 years since your date of graduation. And so the first thing you have to do is establish your timeline. Pick the year you want to apply for the match, and depending on that, you can decide, when and, where you want to clear the steps as you go. So let's say you want to do it like just right after you graduate, the same year after you graduate, like I want to do it. So you can start giving your step one, like you can start preparing for your step one. You can take your step one, like I did, like right after my third year, and you can take your step two between your internship or after your final year. And step three, we'll talk about that later. And I think Arama also asked in her question about what we can do, right, starting from your day one. So guys, the thing about step one is it's very clinically oriented. Like I know the syllabus is just like anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, all of that, but they're not going to ask you stuff like, where is the clavipectoral fascia or, which branch comes from what. Like everything is going to be in the form of a clinical vignette. So every question that's on the exam, it's in the form of a case, like, how all of us, I don't know, when we present cases where like a 35-year-old male presented to the OP with so-and-so, right? So that's how every single question is going to be on the exam, or at least majority of them. So we're not really oriented to that, right? Because in India, like, I mean, if I'm being honest, we just study for like a couple of months before our final exams, and then we study the important questions, and most of them are just theory. So And it's just like a bunch of points. You're memorizing 10 points and then you're going to put them down in the exam paper like the same way. But that's not how this exam is going to be. It's going to test like every single thing about it. So there's this amazing resource which is called First Aid. So First Aid is not a textbook. It's more of a compilation. It's a summary of everything that you need to know. So if you're in your first year and you want to start preparing for step one, I'd say get the First Aid, look at, the important points in it, and then, you can study the theory part of it using your textbooks, and you can keep referring back to First Aid. But otherwise, I'd say, it's okay. Like, you can enjoy your first and second year, and yeah, you can start in your third year.
Thank you, Haripriya. I think that covered a lot and it was very informative, especially related to resources. I think questions people have is about resources, like which ones we should use, which ones can be left to choice. So which do you think must be used for the preparation?
Okay, so here's the thing. The two main resources for step one are UWorld and First Aid. Like, no matter what you do, I don't want to demote anybody or promote anything, but you have some of these commercial stuff, right? Like some companies who approach you and they offer you coaching programs. But I mean, all of us are medical students. We are used to studying on our own. So the only two resources you genuinely need are UWorld and First Aid. UWorld is this amazing question bank. So it's very simple. It's like creating an Instagram account. You go to that page, you create an account in UWorld, and they keep adding questions. They keep changing questions depending on the year, and they keep coming up with new questions to suit the exam, like the current pattern of the exam. I think right now UWorld has almost 4,000 questions, and it's a little expensive. Like for 6 months, it's around $420. So it's around, I think when I purchased it, when the dollar was in the 70s, it was 30,000. And yeah, so you have two modes in that. You have a tutor mode and you have a time mode. So you get to create your own set of questions. Okay, so when people usually do UWorld, they create a block of questions. One block is 40 questions. And you can solve the question. And if you're in tutor mode, you can see the explanation right after. And once you finish the block, it will give you a percentage of, what you did correct and how many you got wrong. And it will also show you the average of, let's say, how many people got what percentage. So let's say if your average was 50, but the people who solved the block got 60%. So you'll understand that you're a little behind and you need to catch up. And as I mentioned earlier, the second most important resource is First Aid. First Aid is literally all you need. I was studying First Aid so much, and there's a lot of other resources. You have Anki decks, but I'm not really much of a flashcard person. But if flashcards work for you, you can look up, Tazanki deck. So it's a deck of, I think, over 1,000 cards, of UWorld, all the tables in UWorld and everything. So you can use that. And for microbiology, a lot of people use Sketchy. It's really good for visual learners. So if you're a visual learner and you remember paintings and stuff and different things on the image which indicate to different things, that works for you. But for me, I study more, through mind maps and flowcharts. So First Aid was best for me when it came to microbiology. You also have a lot of other resources like Kaplan stuff and Lecturio. You have Amboss library. You have USMLE, the subscription RX. But I didn't really use any of them. But before my exam, Amboss has a free trial period, so I checked that out because I wanted to do some new questions. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If I had to, gun to my head, say two resources, that would be UWorld and First Aid. That's all you need to pass.
All right, that's wonderful. That was very informative, and I'm sure everyone here has noted these down, all these points down. So, guys, if you're listening and you're interested in giving Emily, please keep a notebook handy and note down whatever Haripriya has to say, because this stuff is this is pearls of wisdom. She has experience, so it'll be wonderful if you'll actually make use of whatever points she has to say right now. So another question we got from the forms which the people filled out was, what is the ideal time to start preparation? First year, second year, third year, fourth year, considering you have different steps and each step tests different sets of knowledge and different sets of skills. So what is the ideal time to start preparation?
Guys, it's okay. Like you can relax in your first year. Like you just got into medical school, and I'm sure many of you went to quota, and also it must have been hell for you like the last 2 years. So you can relax in your first year. And honestly, first year is like all about anatomy and physiology, right? So make sure you learn your physiology well. And a lot of anatomy that we study is actually pretty redundant. Like, we study the anterior relations and the posterior relations and all of that. Like, it's not really useful for USMLE, like from what I've observed. And the best part about USMLE is that, like, if you open first aid, what you'll see is, like, they divide it system wise. So it's like you have CVS, CNS, GIT, like renal, respiratory, reproductive, and you only have the anatomy which is relevant. Like, you don't have a lot of other stuff that we study for our exams. Like, for example, let's say you're studying the blood supply of GI, right? So you have like superior mesenteric artery, inferior mesenteric artery, the celiac trunk. So what they'll ask you is like the application based stuff. Like, you don't exactly have to know like, what vertebra level it's coming under, or, like what rib it's coming under. They'll only ask you stuff that's clinically relevant. Like, there's a syndrome called the superior mesenteric artery syndrome, right? So like stuff like that, it's really useful stuff. So if you are in your first year, you can, look at the anatomy and physiology for all of these systems. And if you're in your second year, please study your pathology very well. So yeah, and, I'm sorry, I actually missed one resource. It's called Pathoma. A lot of people get like Pathoma. These are like a bunch of videos, and they also have a textbook. But if you study your pathology well in your second year, and if you stick to your first aid, you don't really need Pathoma, like, unless you're somebody who's into videos. So yeah, so in your second year, please focus on your pathology. And once you're done, like with your second year final exam, like I would say, get UWorld or like get an NDME and see, like test, how much of it can you practically apply, like whatever you've learned so far. And I can promise you it's not going to be that useful, because our theory exams don't really cover a lot of practical applications and clinical stuff, right? So yeah, I would say the best time, at least in my opinion, is start right after your second year or during your second year if you can. And once you're in your third year, depending on, how you're doing, because that's when usually the US students also take the exam, they take it in their third year. So depending on, how much more time you need, you can adjust it accordingly and take your exam. Also, one more thing I'd like to add is that there's no hard and fast rule. It doesn't have to be third year. You can literally take it any time. Like, that's the best thing about USMLE is its flexibility. You can actually take the step 2 before the step 1, like if you're past your final year. So that's the best thing about the exam, and there's no hard and fast rule. But if you don't want to waste a lot of time, between your date of graduation and your residency, then a good time would be to apply after your third year.
All right. That's wonderful. That was quite enlightening. So another follow-up question to the one you just answered. A lot of us have been told about Pathoma and UWorld. We've also heard about Boards and Beyond a lot. So what's your opinion on Boards and Beyond and using that as a resource along with UWorld and First Aid and Sketchy and Pathoma?
Okay, so Boards and Beyond is actually a really good resource. And they have like these really informative lectures. Like, I did not find that like a lot useful. I just only used it for like a couple of systems, because these are like really good for revision, like the slides and stuff in Boards and Beyond. So if you are somebody whose basics are weak, like, if you've just like surfed through first and second year, then Boards and Beyond is really going to help you, because he'll take you back to scratch and, to start all over again. I really found Boards and Beyond useful for CVS, because the person who teaches, Dr. Ryan, he is a cardiologist, so it's superlative, like for CVS. And for other systems, it was, I felt like I could have studied first aid and I would have, ended up with the same thing. So yeah, Boards and Beyond is a pretty good resource, and it's actually pretty cheap, like compared to the other resources. I think it's only like $89 a month. So if you want, like if your basics are weak, you can start with Boards and Beyond.
All right. Wonderful. So we talked about how some of the resources, cost a little more than most of our Indian resources. So extrapolating on that, what is the financial aspect about taking the USMLE? That's in fact a deterrent for most of the students. They feel that the entire process is very expensive. So could you break it down as to what the general ballpark range is, what we have to spend to give the exams and to reach the US?
Okay. So before I answer that question, I want to tell you guys something. And I have a lot of friends and colleagues in my college, like since I took the exam and my results came out, like they approach me, like I've at least had like 3, 4 people coming up to me every single day, and they're like, they want me to convince them to take the exam. Like they want me to convince them to take the risk of investing on themselves. Right. So that is the thing, you have to be sure, you have to be able to gamble like on yourself, can you bet on yourself? Like it's going to cost a lot of money. So make up your mind, like decide if you can bet on yourself and your future, and if you want to take the USMLE exam, because if you keep staying in that zone where you're like, it's expensive, so I don't know if I should do it, or if I should just like, stick to NEET-PG. So is that a risk you're willing to take? Okay. So with that in mind, USMLE is actually a little expensive. Step one, since the dollar was like 70-ish last year, it costed me, it's $1195. So the exam fees is like $975, but since they have to bring it from the US to India, like the Prometric Center, that costs like an additional like $210-ish. So it's approximately $1,200. And last year it costed me like 86,000. But this year, since dollar went up to 80 rupees, it costed me 90. I just paid my step 2 fees. So it costed me like 98,000 rupees. And in addition to that, I spent like 35,000 like last year for my U-World step 1. And before that, I actually got a Lecturio subscription. Lecturio is like way cheaper. But just don't Lecturio should not be your primary resource, because their question bank is a little off. Like it's not as accurate as U-World. And Lecturio was like 30,000. And the NBMEs, yes, the NBMEs are, I took like 3 exams. So that was like, say, 60, so $180. So that was like another 14,000. So all in all, my step 1 expenditure so far has been like around 1.5, 1.6 lakhs. That's including all the resources that I got. Like, I also got boards and beyond for like 1 month. So that was $89. And that's how it's been for step 1. But step 2, CK, which I'm going to take next year, it's not as costly because there aren't many resources for step 2. But so step 1 is 1,200, 1,500. Let's say it's around $1,500. Step 2 is going to cost you the same. And then step 3 is a little more expensive than these exams. And also step 3 is not like a compulsion. It's only if you want an H-1B visa. And I think I'll cover that up in like some other question about the visas. And in addition to that, guys, so in the whole USMLE journey, like I don't know if many of you know, it's not just about the test. You need to have something called US clinical experience, in which you have to go to the US, you have to work under a doctor, or you have to rotate in a hospital. These are called, electives, clinical electives, research electives. You have to do them in the US, and you have different types of electives. You have externship, you have clerkship, you have observership, and these cost a lot of money. And I will answer like clerkships in detail in another question, because it's a very big problem for a lot of Indian students right now because of something called VSLO. But so clerkships are the most expensive thing right now. Like I'm applying for clerkships because I need to get like some LORs, right? And the application fee for each hospital is like $300, $400, and you don't even know if they'll pick you. Like only to apply, it's $300, $400, and a 4-week elective is somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000. So, like based on my calculations, like when I put down the cost for all USMLEs, it is including like say your plane tickets and your stay and everything, like your visa charges. It's gonna be around 20 lakhs, So this is how I took it, right? I go to a government college and my fees is very low. And it's like a small investment you're making on yourself, and there's a lot of pressure, but there's also a lot of chance that it's gonna work out. So think of it that way, yeah.
That.
Arma, go ahead.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are.
So many of us have this question as how you're supposed to manage both your MBBS as well as the preparation exams. So could you enlighten us?
Yeah. I started powerlifting as like a de-stressing thing for me when I was studying for this exam. And I was actually able to manage like all of them. So my college is from 9 to 4. And I don't even do anything extreme. Like I don't wake up at 4 a.m. I just wake up at 7:30. I study for like an hour and a half. That's my morning block. And I do like, I don't know, 20, 30 questions of UWorld. I review the questions. I make notes. And then I go to college. So 9 to 12, I have my postings and I have like a 1 hour lunch break. So during that lunch break, I either review my notes or I try to listen to a podcast, or if I don't feel like it, I just talk to my friends. And then 1 to 4, so this is something which is very controversial, but I don't really listen to like my college lectures because a lot of them are like not really taught in English. So that was like where I saved a lot of time, because in the class I was sitting and I was studying first aid. So if you are somebody that pays attention to class, you should do it. Like good job, keep doing it. But if you're somebody that does not pay attention to class like me, like this is an excellent chance for you to make use of your class time. And after that, I came back at like 4, so I was home by 4:15. And then I studied for like 1 more hour, and then I went to the gym for like 1.5 hours, and then again I was back at like 7:30 to 9:30. I did like one full block, and then around I took a break for dinner, and then 10 to 12 I did like my other block. And yeah, like honestly, that's all you need. Like you just need like 4 solid hours every day, and you need to be efficient when you study. And it's all about the study techniques as well. And I talk a lot about this on my page. Like I know how it's like the stereotype is like doctors, oh my god, they don't have a personal life, they just study all day, they don't do anything. That is not true. Like you have to break the stereotype, guys. Like let's start being more efficient.
The for about search how and where they perform.
Uh, I'm sorry, could Arama repeat the question, please?
About research, am I audible now?
Yeah, the quality is a little bad though.
Andra, you want to take over? I think my net is working.
Yeah, sure. So, Arama, I think she wants to ask you, what is the role of research in an IMG's life, or an aspirant for USMLE? Does research have any role to play in terms of the CV building and in general for an IMG?
Okay, guys, research is invaluable. I know it's not really stressed enough in India. Like, it doesn't matter. You can just search through life without a single publication, and you just have to do like one thesis in your PG days. But research is like super important in US. So I'll actually tell it to you like this, so that you get a better perspective. So when you apply for residency, when you apply for the math cycle, we use something called ERAS. Okay, it's like electronic residency application system. So ERAS is where you upload like your entire profile, and then it sends it to all the programs you apply. So ERAS has like a bunch of columns, like you need a professional photograph, you need a personal statement, you need your resume. So in this, there's like 3 different columns. So there's work experiences, there's volunteer experiences, and there's research experiences, and there's publications. Okay, so research experience is not the same as publication. So think of it this way, like if you really want a good chance at it, like try building your life around this, like see what you've done so far, like what would come under research experiences, what would come under volunteer experiences, what would come under work experiences. So work experience is anything like unpaid or paid. So if you're like working outside at a private hospital for like a night shift or something, like for a couple of months, like that would count. Or if you go to the US and you do clerkships, like that would come under work experience. And research experience is different from publication. So publication is anything which is published, right? So it's preferable if you have a PubMed index, journal publication, or honestly like anything would do. Like, and if the publication is like in process, because these usually take a lot of time, like months at a stretch. You can also mention that if it's been accepted and it's under review or something. And research experience is. Earlier, I was talking about USCE. Remember, I was like clinical electives, research electives. So research electives is when this is something you can do after you graduate as well. Clinical electives you have to do before you graduate. I mean, if you don't already have a question on USCE, you should probably mention that. And so yeah, research electives is where you work as a research assistant or like a lab technician, all of this stuff. So you have to go to the US, you have to look actively, like, see which university is offering what position, and you have to, like, try to apply to these things. And volunteer experience, yeah, like if you're working for IMA or other organizations like AMSA, we have something called DCS, which is Diabetic Child Society. So all of this comes under a volunteer experience. So yeah, research is invaluable. Guys, start chasing your professors, start going behind your postgraduates and residents. Like, I get it, like we're not taught how to write these things. Like, it's a lot of formal writing, it's a lot of clinical writing, and we're not taught how to do these. Like, start small, like start with a case report or start with something simple. Try asking if you could, help your professors, and, they'd be willing to add your name to the publication. And it does not have to be first author or anything. It can be anywhere. So yeah, research is very important and you need to start. Yeah.
All right. So I think you will agree with the age-old saying, publish or perish. And that applies here for most of us USMLE aspirants, that we all need to definitely get into the research system and the research culture to, be able to to be able to do well in the whole residency application process, right?
Yeah,
So,
and if I may add, guys, like people in the US have like 18 publications. Like, can you believe it? 18. Like, our professors also don't have, as many publications, and it's crazy, like how crazy they are about research. And anything counts. A poster presentation, or like as something as simple as a case report. If you see, like, I don't know, like we had a Carter syndrome case, so I wrote a case report of that. Like, anything counts, and you are competing, against people who have like a lot of experience. So just make sure that you start building up to it from day one.
So you mentioned right now that even a poster presentation counts. So how do you reflect that in your profile or in your CV, that, at some point in my life in my undergrad years, I went for a conference, or, I presented a paper or a case. How do you reflect that, properly on your CV?
So remember, I said ERAP has 3 sections: your work, research, volunteer, right? So under research, since you did a paper presentation, a poster presentation, you could add that, like, at so-and-so conference and whatever the topic is. And yeah, that's where it would show up.
All right. Wonderful. So Vani Malhotra has asked us a question. Is it true that IMGs are usually only offered internal medicine in the US? So if you could throw some light about what specialties Indians get, or, what the whole racial discrimination is there apparently in the whole selection procedure, so we get more idea about the same.
Okay, so first of all, it's not true that Indians or IMGs are only given internal medicine, because I've just had one of my seniors, like she's a couple of years older than me, she got into a surgical specialty. So guys, that's the thing, it all depends on how good your CV is, like, how everything is in place, right? So you need to stand out. Like, it's surgical specialties are like the most competitive, right? If you want something like orthopedics is super competitive. So it's all about how competitive it is. Like, it's the same in India, isn't it? Like, if you're taking NEET-PG and you want like a very competitive specialty, you'll need a good rank for that. So it's the same, in the US as well. Like, you need to have a CV that stands out if you want a good specialty. Like, in US, dermatology is very competitive. I know dermatology is looked down upon in India, but dermatology, it's like one of the most competitive fields out there in the US. And it's really hard to get into. Like, last year, according to the NRMP match results, there was only one IMG who got into a derm program. So yeah, like, even if you're like really serious about surgery, and let's say you applied for like this year's cycle and you did not get in, you can apply for next year's cycle, with the same scores, and you can do something that will add to your CV in this 1 year. So it's all about how serious you are and how much work you're willing to put in. Like, you have to go the extra mile, and see what you can do.
All right, wonderful. So to summarize, there is like a slight variation in terms of IMGs getting seats, but it's not unachievable to get like a highly competitive seat based on how amazing your application is, basically.
Yeah, like, guys, there's objective criteria and there's subjective criteria in any application. Objective criteria are your scores, like your step 2 CK score, and if you're giving your step 3. And subjective criteria, stuff like your personal statement, your research, and all of that, right? So if your objective criteria is solid, like your MPSC, which is like your mark list and all, which is uploaded by your college, if all of that is like, if you get a glowing letter of recommendation from your dean, like you are set, like nobody will reject you outright. But in addition to that, like if you want to do something in surgery, like show your passion for it, like, start an organization, that like probably helps people, like which is related to surgery, something related to surgery, or, show some volunteering experience. Like, have you shadowed any doctors in your home country? Or, how many publications do you have which have anything to do with, surgery? So yeah, it's not impossible. It's all about, how you stand out. And like, the good thing is US is really looking for diversity right now. So they actually reserve like a bunch of seats for IMGs, like across some hospitals. So maybe you may not get into Stanford or Johns Hopkins. Like you can't get into those, like even for IM, it's pretty hard and competitive out there. And some hospitals only have like a green card policy, but there are places that are like welcoming IMGs, and it's all about how you present yourself. That's it.
All right. Great. So another question which we were asked was, how important are your college scores when it comes to applying abroad? Because as Indian students, we tend to neglect our university scores, our college results, and we focus only on entrances. So do college internal marks matter in the whole process?
Not as much. Like, as long as you're like not failing, or as long as you're not like in really bad scores, like honestly, they don't matter, because the objective criteria at the end of the day is your step score, like your step 2 score, and if you've cleared your step 1 in the first attempt. So stuff like that is most important. But at the same time, as I was saying earlier, there's something called MPSC, which is like your dean's letter and your mark list from your college. So okay, imagine this, like your dean is writing a letter of recommendation for you, you're a student, they're like, yeah, so-and-so is a student of so-and-so college, she did well, like she's in good standing in her class, like, yeah, she did fine, like everything was taught in English. Imagine this letter versus, she's a gold medalist in so-and-so field. She was in the top 3 out of a class of 200 people, and, she, received distinction for so-and-so subject and so-and-so year. Like, which one do you think, stands out more? It's obviously the one, where you went out, all out. So, yeah, like, it would make a difference. Like, MPSC is considered, like, objective, but, yeah, it doesn't really matter, like, even if you get, like, 60%, 70%. But if you could get your dean or, whoever to write you a good letter of recommendation, that would be pretty good.
All right. Very informative. So in follow-up to that, so you said that a letter from your home country, from your college matters. But a lot of people have this conception that only LORs from your USC have like a certain standing, while other LORs from your home country don't mean as much to the whole process. So what's your opinion on that?
Okay, so the LOR, the dean's letter, it's called MPSC. So it's different from LORs. So MPSC is like it's an essential thing. Like whoever your principal is, your dean is, like they have to send you, they have to like recommend you, right? Like somebody from your institution has to do it. So that is different from the USCE LORs. Like they come under like clerkships and stuff, and those are different. Those are very important. There's different criteria for that as well.
All right, understood. So in the chat box, we have a question from Yash Mehta. If I do MBBS from an Indian college but have a US passport, would I still be considered an IMG?
Okay, so this is like all the people, all the US citizens who do it from the Caribbean. You know what I mean? Like Caribbean schools are like very famous, right? So yeah, you would be, I guess you would still be an IMG, because you are doing like your step 1 and step 2 from outside of US. It's not like from an AAMC, credited university, right? So it's from outside of US. So you would still be an IMG, like, but since you have a US passport, like assuming you're a citizen, you would have access to like a lot more hospitals than other people would. Like, let's say if somebody is applying for an H-1B versus you, like you'd have a better opportunity of getting in.
All right, wonderful. So moving on to the next question, could you tell us the basic pattern of the USMLE exam? Step one, how many hours is it? What's the distribution? So we get like a bit, and compared to next PG or PLAB, what is the exam duration, the pattern?
Okay, so I don't really know much about PLAB, but I know PLAB is not as hard as USMLE. Like USMLE is crazy, it's a beast. So USMLE is an 8-hour exam. Your step one is an 8-hour exam. Step two CK is 9 hours, and so there's 280 questions in all, and the questions are divided into 7 blocks, right? So there's 40 questions and there's 7 blocks, and usually people take like 1 hour per block, but it all depends on how you guys do it. And around 40% of the questions, you can actually look up this data from the ECFMG or the website. 40% of the questions are usually pathology, pathophysiology, and the other 40% is like physiology or so. And like a few questions are like anatomy, and then you have like a bunch of them from biostats and all. So I'll just give you like the walkthrough of the exam, like how it went for me. So my center was in Hyderabad. Like I had to go to Prometric. So when you apply, like after the whole application process, you get a scheduling permit and there's a number on that. So you have to go to Prometric, you have to book your appointment, you have to call them 1 week in advance, and then, you have to fly into wherever the center is and you go to the exam. So after like the whole security thing is done, there's an 8-hour clock and there's a 15-minute module, which is like a tutorial kind of thing, which you can skip if you've taken enough NDMEs and if you've solved your work. And so that's when the time starts, okay? So the 8-hour clock will keep running throughout the exam, and you can take breaks after each block. So you have 7 blocks, and yeah, you just do like 1 block, and I would recommend that you take a break after every single block. Like it's good to keep you active. You can't just sit there for like hours at a stretch, and you can take a longer break for lunch. Yeah, there's also one more thing I want to clarify. Many people don't know this, and so the passing score right now is 196 out of 280, right, for step one. So it's not like a linear thing, okay? So it's not like there's 280 questions and I answer 196 of them and I pass. It's not a linear thing, because there are some questions called the experimental questions, which may or may not count towards your score. Okay, so think of it as a percentage. So when you actually do NDMEs, like when you solve your NDMEs, you will notice that if you get a 60%, like the score projected will be 210, But what is 60% of 280? Like if you think about it, it's less than 210, correct? So it's because the exam has these experimental questions and which may or may not contribute to your score. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Okay, it's not like a linear thing. It's not like, okay, 280 questions, so I have to answer like 196 of them correct. Like you probably have to answer less than that or more than that. It all depends on how many experimental questions are there in your exam, like on that day. Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to the next question. Some people asked us if they want to start preparing for the steps in their internship year. Do you think it's prudent, and how will they manage their time with their internship along with preparing for step one, step two?
Okay, so that's the thing, I'm going to take my step 2 next year and I'm going to start my internship. And this is what I've been doing. I've been doing a lot of background research about, what goes in and out, like in the life of an intern every single day. So in my college, most of the interns, like the original, like the actual work hours are between 9 and 2, which is like 2 hours less than my college time, So that means I have a lot of time to prepare. So I'm genuinely looking forward to my internship. And yeah, I mean, honestly, what is house tea? I mean, we call it house tea. So what is it, guys? Like, it's a bunch of chores, right? You have to get some tests. You have to, like, get some blood tests done. You have to give somebody, some injections, or you have to be there, like, during the work hours. So I don't know, like, try talking to your residents or, like, your PGs who are above you and see if they let you off the hook easy. And it's honestly all about how you distribute your time, and making sure that you're not zoning out whenever you're studying. Like only study as long as you can focus, attention span and all of that. And I think it is pretty manageable. Like, yeah, I think you can do it.
I'm sure that's like a hope for a lot of people who thought that doing internship will be a tough, a tough process and like a bad decision taken. So I'm sure a lot of people start preparing for step one in their internship years as well. So it's not as impossible as it looks for them.
Yeah, guys, but also keep in mind that step one prep is like it's not like a 2 week thing. It's not like something you can. It's not like an all nighter you can pull right before your exams. It's something you have to do for months. And there's going to be a lot of stress. Like everybody's going to be asking you about it. Like, oh my God, what did you study? What's your progress? And that is really stressful. Like sometimes your own parents will stress you out. Your own friends are going to stress you out. So if you want, you can also take a break in internship. Like right now, my college does not have that option because I don't know, like there's been some technical issues and all with the diploma generation for a lot of students. But if your college does that, like if they offer like if they're allowing you to take a break in internship, you can do that as well. So yeah, that's not a problem.
All right. So we have another question in the chat box from Atharva Jagdale saying, when are you planning to go for your USCE? So if you will give us a basic brief about the timeline for going for your clinical experience, and when do you think is a good time, both in terms of managing studies, but also gaining good experience and making the best out of the situation for USCEs. That would be wonderful.
Okay, guys. So you can take your USCE before you take your step one. You just need to throw money at it. But a lot of places they require you to have your step one like pass report, because that's like clinical, right? If you have a step one, it's like a free pass. It's like, okay, this guy knows stuff. They're not going to be lost in the whole process of it. So coming to me, I actually wanted to take it like in the gap between like my final year and the start of my internship. But okay, guys, start looking up universities right now. Like, if you have time to browse Instagram, stop doing that. Start looking up like universities, like look up whatever hospital you can find, look up, just search, like so-and-so hospital, visiting students, it'll take you to the page. They'll tell you if they're open right now or if they're not and what their requirements are. So right now I am trying to apply to FIU, which is in Florida, and Cornell, which is Ivy, so it's pretty hard to get into. I don't know if they'll accept me, but that's the thing. They don't have any vacancies until like October of next year. And on their website, it says do not apply more than 6 months in advance. So you get it, right? It's like a double standard kind of a thing, and that's happening because of COVID. Like a lot of these places have shut down, and now they're accepting students again, like after a long hiatus. So all the US students are applying, and they're being given priority, obviously. And IMGs, like, yeah, they're gonna throw us out. We don't really have a lot of priority. So you need to start applying months in advance. Like start emailing them, start following up with them, and find out what their application requirements are. And my college actually has like there's a small problem with like taking a break in the internship. So I am trying to postpone my USC as much as I can towards the end of my internship. I was thinking I'll just like take a break, 1 month before my internship ends, and I'll get it extended by 3 months, and then I'll go to the US for 3 months. So, also there's like a huge visa thing right now, which is going to be a very big problem for many of us. Like some places, there are no visa interviews for like 500 days, 800 days, like especially in the big cities, So you'll have to like talk to an agency if you can get an emergency visa, depending upon your letter of acceptance and all of that. So yeah, USCE is a pretty, it's a cumbersome thing. So the sooner you get started, the better.
That does sound like a lot. And to ask you more about the USCE, how do you increase your chances of getting into a college or getting a match for a USCE program in a good college? What criteria come into play to be accepted for such programs?
Okay, so before we discuss that, like I want to talk about something called VSLO. So you guys know how ECFMG is like the governing body for USMLE examinations, correct? So I think I saw somebody say Brooklyn USC. Brooklyn USC is pretty good. Like if you're a graduate and if you want hands-on, you can totally apply for Brooklyn USC. So yeah, coming back to VSLO, I'm assuming your college is student friendly. So please talk to like some of your officials and try to get registered for VSLO, because right now in the US, there's only like 6 or 8 colleges which are accepting IMGs for rotations, with colleges that do not have VSLO. Like my college does not have VSLO. So right now I only have access to like 6 to 8 colleges in the US, and I keep emailing them and most of them give me no. So my options are like two right now, if I don't want to go through an agency and if I want to apply directly. So yeah, one more thing, if you want hands-on USC, you should do it before you graduate while you're still a student. And hands-on is where you get to touch with the patient, interact with the patient and stuff like that. And it's the LOI you receive for a hands-on clerkship is a lot more valuable than say something like an observership, where you're just like shadowing the doctor. So yeah, that's a little bit about USC. And you can also go through agencies, but they do charge you a lot. But yeah, I mean, I guess, it all depends on your timeline and, the time crunch.
All right. When we apply for USCE, do they look at your profile in terms of the research papers you've done or your performance in college, or as a medical student in general, to be accepted into a program?
Yeah, they actually have a bunch of requirements. Like they need your CV and they need like a bunch of forms. Like you need to fill in a couple of applications and all. And you need to get it signed by your dean. And, sometimes some places want like an LOR from one of your department heads, like let's say your Department of Medicine, right? They want an LOR from somebody like Department of Surgery or something like that. And of course, like your research and stuff does count, so final year is a good time to apply because by then, you will have, culminated a bunch of stuff. So yeah, they do look at USC and stuff. But if it's someplace, not like the Ivy, like the Ivy for medical colleges, like med schools is different from like your normal Ivy, right? So you have Yale, you have, I think, Emory, you have, Cornell. So all these places, like out of all of these, only one or two are open, and these might be very hard to get into. But outside of that, like if you apply to something like FIU, they charge $3,000 for a 4-week clerkship, but $3,000. But yeah, it's easier. It's relatively easier to get into.
All right. So Aditi Yadav has a question. How many USCEs are you planning to do?
At least 3. Like you can maximum apply like 3 LORs for your ERAS. So I'm trying to do like at least 3. And yeah, guys, one more thing, just keep in mind that it's always better to have like a university LOR. So it's better to apply to a university than to like, a private practitioner through USCE and stuff. Like I was actually talking to 8 MD people a couple of days ago. They were helping me, they shared like their brochures and stuff for like the USCE. And yeah, like a lot of them are actually under private practitioners, but apparently the LOR will have like a university letterhead, like Mount Sinai and stuff. So yeah, I don't know, just see see whatever timeline you have and what you can do. If you're still in your third year or second year, start looking up universities, try to talk your college into getting a VSLO membership, because that would be really helpful. Like VSLO would literally open up a lot of opportunities to you. And yeah, just keep in mind that it's pretty hard to get into like the big ones. Like Johns Hopkins does not give USCE to international students. You'll only get research electives for 9-week duration. But like Cleveland Clinic and Mayo Clinic and all these are open to like clinical electives, but you need to take like different exams like IELTS and stuff for that. So yeah, you just have to like go Google every single hospital you can think of, look up their visiting students page and see what their requirements are.
All right. That was very helpful, I'm sure, as far as the USCs are concerned. Adnan Narvel has another question for you, Haripriya. Is it true that Indian medical students cannot register for the MLE after 2024?
That is not true. So there is something called the World Directory of Medical Education or something. It's called WFME, so I'm guessing it's education. Your school needs to be registered under that, so you need to have that accredited, you need to be like recognized by that organization, and you can continue applying. And that's the thing, guys. Create an ACFMG profile, get yourself verified, like get your Form 183 done. It's a notary campaign. So you don't have to pay the fee, but as long as your college is registered right now and you start your application right now, the changes will not really affect like other stuff because you've already registered.
All right. So another question in follow-up of what you mentioned earlier, how we need to have the whole VSLO thing for colleges. A lot of us belong to universities or colleges which are not very student friendly, which aren't very exposed to the whole going abroad system. So what about students who aren't as lucky to get colleges which are conducive for the whole application process? How do they overcome this disadvantage they have in terms of not having a very supportive college?
I mean, I can relate because my college is anything but supportive. Like, so during the process of verification for like your step 1 and step 2, you need to get your student status verified. So if your college has an account on the ECFMG admin page, like they just have to go log in and click like a single button beside your name which says that you're still a student here. And for that, I've been going behind like the clerk in my office who does that for like a month now. And I've also bribed him, and he openly asked for it. It's pretty bad in my college, and guys, if I can do it, I'm sure you can do it. Don't worry. So you just have to see for step 1 and step 2 verification, they have to do it. Like it's their job, like they can't stop you. And I know there's a lot of stigma associated with like going abroad. They're like, how can you leave your home country? When we've taught you so much, we've given you so much, and it's your choice. Nobody can stop you, guys. Like, yeah, step 1, step 2 verification is where you'll need your college. And for clerkships and stuff, if you go through an agency, if you feel like you're at a disadvantage and you don't want to involve your college people, even for that, you need a no objection certificate which your college has to give. So I guess you will have to keep bugging them. You have to stay on top of them, and you have to get it done. And I know it's very annoying because you're already pretty stressed out. Like, you've spent so much money and the exam is coming and everybody's like asking you about it and people are making it harder for you. But you just have to stay on top of them. You just have to keep following up with them. There's no other way.
All of us will definitely keep this in mind when we have to go through the process of applying for our steps.
Yeah.
So we have another question for you. We're bombarding you with questions because everyone's just so anxious about the process and eager to know about it. So
no, it's okay. I mean, I would like
to take a minute to thank you for just continuously answering our questions one after the other. And this has been very, very helpful so far, and we've learned a lot and gained a lot of perspective in the process. So to continue with the question bombardment, did you prioritize the academic pattern and syllabus of the US med schools to get more exam oriented in your professional years rather than your university pattern and academic content? This question is from Aditi Yadav from the chat box. So did you orient yourself to the med school pattern, or were you more focused on the way you taught in your university, in your home country?
Okay, guys, I mean, if I'm being honest, like, I don't even know how I went through my first and second year. Like, I just started studying like 1 month before my final exams, and I was like, okay, first class, that's good enough for me. It's not a big deal. And studying for STEP has like literally changed my life. It has opened so many, doors for me, and it helped me like understand so many things better. Like, I genuinely feel like I step 1, like, it has clinically oriented me to everything. And no, I didn't really do anything special. Like, I didn't really, look up the, stuff in US. Like, they have a lot of resources. Like, they don't have textbook. Like, most of the stuff in the US, it's just like videos and online resources and question banks, And yeah, I mean, we don't really need all of that. As I said, like, just go back to your basics. First aid, UWorld, and you're good to go. And the best part about studying for USMLE is, it's not like, if you just study for the exam, it's not going to come in handy in other situations, It will actually help you. Like, studying for USMLE will make you a better doctor. Like, I was able to, like, answer questions and stuff in my ward, Like, I was posted in pediatrics and, like, heart murmurs and stuff, like aortic stenosis or, say mitral stenosis and stuff, like people with rheumatic heart disease. Like, I was genuinely able to, like, understand things better because I studied for that in USMLE, and because, UWorld has these questions which are clinical scenarios, so you can literally see it. I think there's like an adage or something in medicine, like the eye cannot see what the mind doesn't know, right? So my mind went from like blank to actually understanding stuff.
Wow, that's quite beautiful and inspiring that you change your perspective and your outlook about being a future doctor while preparing for the steps. That's quite inspiring. And a follow-up question, how to prepare for step 2 CK? This comes from Hiba Anis in the chat box.
Okay, so step two. Okay, so it's a 9 hour exam now, and so the thing about step two is that there is no first aid. Like there is a first aid, but it's trash. Don't read that; it will confuse you. So step two is it's a hard nut to crack, because there is no particular resource that you can go to for step two. The only resource you have is UWorld, and you have like a bunch of accessory stuff. So, oh guys, I forgot to mention this. I discovered this late. I discovered this when I started preparing for my step two CK. There's something called Divine Intervention Podcast. His name is it's a pun. Okay, his name is Divine. The doctor's name is Divine, and he makes these podcasts. So they're called Divine Intervention Podcast. You should look them up. They are amazing. Like each podcast, like he goes through like a bunch of topics, and they're gonna help you so much. They're presented to you in the form of a scenario, and yeah, that's how it will show up on the question as well. So it's gonna help you like immensely. So I'm listening to like Divine Intervention podcast, like when I'm in class or when I'm sleepy or something. I just put the podcast on. If I go to the gym, I put it on, and yeah, UWorld is your most important resource. If you want to do UWorld like 2 times, 3 times, like 2 passes, 3 passes, no number is enough. Like do as much UWorld as you can. And of course, you have to do like your NDMEs, and some people recommend doing step three questions. Step three is also like pretty similar to step two CK. So some people are like, it's okay if you want to do like step three questions as well. Like if you're out of questions, you can do like a bunch of AMBOSS questions if you want. And yeah, that's the thing. Step two is doing a lot of questions, because everything is very vague. Step one, like you can narrow it down to like a couple of answers if you are just a sensible person. You don't really need to know a lot of stuff. But step two, it's very vague, and there's a lot of algorithms. It's all clinical. Like let's say some patient have like a right axis deviation on their EKG, and let's say they try to trichoepithelial or something. So what most of the questions are like, what is the first thing you will do? Like how will you approach the patient? And every option is like just as good. Like should I do an EKG or should I do this? Should I do that? So yeah, I'm hoping I will eventually be able to get past that state of confusion. But yeah, step two is a little harder than step one. But yeah, I mean it's a score now, so it's the most important exam.